to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Tactical skills that will help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Here, these are conversations that will differentiate you from your competition. Now, if you don't want to be different than your competition, probably should just go ahead and shut this off.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Like when we audit the mod and do the mod master and give them the actionable items that they can do in order to lower their cost of risk.
This is Power Producers Shop Talk. Production redefined.
Reasonable and what wasn't, and I think that that's spot on. And these people that we're talking with don't necessarily understand what their exposures are and what they can even do about them when they're uncovered. So I do like that what we're able to provide is something tangible, action items that they can do.
Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to Power Producer Shop Talk, episode 14.
14, it is. Yep.
What are we talking about, man? We talk about talking to clients.
Talking about practice?
Talking about clients and how to talk to them in defined terms. Makes life a lot easier when you do that.
Right.
Actually, I prefer to talk to my clients in ambiguous terms as much as fun.
Ambiguous and just hide commissions, all that stuff.
Well, listen, I don't want to be the one to rain on your parade, bro, but we got a situation here because I have a gentleman who's currently recruiting for an insurance sales representative in his Brandon office.
Ooh.
And by the way, this is in all caps, bold, and highlighted in bright yellow. Base pay / benefits plus commission and incentive opportunity.
There you go.
Definitely did their research because the next sentence says, with your background, experience, and location, I thought that you could possibly be a good fit for this opportunity.
Where do I sign up?
If you're interested in finding out more about this opportunity, I would be happy to talk with you further about it. Please reply to this email.
Was this a LinkedIn message or just
no, this is a direct email?
That's fantastic.
I'm wondering if this particular person would like for me to call live on a podcast.
That would be so good.
An interview for this job. There's a chance.
Please do it.
Yeah, there's a chance that could happen. Not. Wow. All right, cool. So anyhow, define terms, man. So it's interesting because I think a lot of times when we get in front of our clients, we just start spitting things out and expect them to understand.
Like insurance jargon.
Jargon. Yeah, we're jargoners.
Yeah.
Heavy on the jargon. In buzzwords, we have a lot we have to unpack. That's like one of my all-time.
Let me unpack that for you.
Yeah, I hate unpacking that.
I'm gonna use that phrase all the time now.
That's fine. Destiny uses it too, so let me be a peer group. Anyhow, what I'm getting at with that topic is how you relate things to your clients or prospects, really more than clients. At the point,
you got to kind of mirror them, right? I mean, that's how I've always done things.
Or break it down into measurable units that are more tangible to what they do for a living. So, a lot of people out there don't really do total cost of risk. I get it. We're trying to change the world one recovering agent at a time. But, if you're going to go in with total cost of risk, you need to understand that calculation. But you also need to understand how to articulate what that calculation is to your clients. And even more importantly, you need to give it to them in a way that they can understand that is directly tangible to their business. And so, for example, one of the things that I was going to talk about is total cost of risk calcs and how you relay that. And so one of the best ways that I do that, and it only works with the right size account. Like, I'm not going to go into a $5,000 premium account and attempt to break this down because, number one, they're just not even going to be willing to listen to what I have to say. It's not going to have any. You're going to have a difficult
hit home.
Yeah, and you're going to have a difficult time calculating any, real total cost of risk on an account that size, anyhow.
Sure.
But so let's just make for all practical purposes, we're in the middle market, which is what we talk about anyhow. But there's an art to doing this. So number one, if you're at the point of sale, it has to be done on an assumption basis, because you may have gone in and done like a mod audit, or you may have some premium information or whatever else. But most of the time, you might know sales, but you're definitely not going to know profit. Okay. Unless you're so far down the road that you've gotten the financials from a company, you might have a sales figure if the information that you were given is rated off of sales, or you ask that question. Chances of you knowing profit are slim and none. Right. And I've been in situations where I've got clients that are over $100 million a year in sales that didn't even want to tell me that. Like they weren't willing to. They didn't want to give me the sales figure. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, makes no sense to me at all. So anyhow, the art to this is, if you're operating on assumption, you always want to assume that they're doing more.
Way more. Well, not way more, but more.
You want to go in and you want to project a higher number than what you're able to comfortably say that they're actually doing. Because if you use a higher number one, you don't risk offending them.
Yeah.
And number two, if you use the higher number, they are going to come to their own conclusion that if the impact is this much on a company doing that amount of sales,
right,
it's even more for a company that's only doing what we're doing. So number one, always go high on sales. And rule number two, always go high on profit. So if you think they're doing 5% profit, use 10%. Again, same theory. You're not going to offend them, and they'll be able to put 2 and 2 together. What you want to do is determine that profitability on an annual basis, right? So if we know that a company has got $1 million a year in profit, you can divide that by 365, and that's
how do you go about estimating that? Like, if you've got their sales, I mean, I would imagine it differs depending on industry. But
because, being honest, I typically Google what's the average profit for a company that does this. Average net profit for light manufacturing of component parts or something, and you'll get statistics. There's a lot of stuff out there, and then I'll typically look at it and increase it from whatever that is. But so let's just say that we figured out, we got the sales, we got the percentage, and we come up with the fact that it's $1 million, hard dollars in profit. You take that and you divide it by 365, and it's going to give you the amount of profit that company is making every single day, right? Mm-hmm. So then you can take your total cost of risk calculation and you can compare it to the assumed profit, and you can show that company how many days they have to work to pay for their total cost of risk. That is a really, really impactful way to get in front of these people and get their attention. And I've seen it where we've had it as little as like 2 or 3 days a year. I represented a company. I shouldn't say I did. I didn't personally represent them. Our firm, early in my career, represented a company that was working over a year to pay for their total cost of risk from the prior year.
Yep, I remember you saying that.
So if you break it down that way, it's a lot easier way for maybe a less sophisticated CFO or controller to digest that information. So when I talk about putting it into relatable terms, that's one way to do it. Obviously, another way would be number of widgets you have to produce at an assumed profit margin just to cover your cost of risk and all of that stuff. But I think that, again, it goes back to the difference between selling somebody a product and solving a problem. You're going to tell them premium, but you're not going to talk about all the other stuff because, quite frankly, in many cases, agents don't know that other stuff to even begin the total cost of risk calculation. So
This reminds me a lot of the example or story that you've told. I don't know if we talked about it on here or not, but the resort where you were talking about the soft costs relating to their claims and the best in class.
We beat that.
I know you and I have talked about it a number of times, but I don't know how many times you've talked about it on here, but similar conversation for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So the other one that I like, and this is more for when you need to overcome an objection. And again, sometimes I try and remain polished as much as I can, but I have an edge to me. I think anybody that's out in producing in the middle market has some sort of an edge to them. You have to, otherwise you're going to get walked all over. But it has to do with overcoming an objection from somebody who's not willing to meet with me, right? And that's another one that I put into terms where people can understand. Actually, a really good one for defined terms was the example we gave on the episode about disclosing your commission, where if you tell somebody that you shouldn't be working for less than the average server at a restaurant where they eat in terms of percentage, again, that's another example of talking to people in defined terms. But this one's a little different. And it has to do with somebody that we realize has got some mod problems because we've seen the mod and we know what it is. And usually if we can get that information up front and make that phone call and engage whoever it is we're trying to talk to, we're going to get them to agree to meet with us, at least to hear what we have to say. I mean,
sure,
we're relatively persuasive in that angle, but there are times where we're not. And so I like to take the angle of, well, I just want to make sure, your mod is a 1.7. And based on what I can calculate, and I have no real information about how much you're paying in premium or whatever else, but I have a rough idea on the size of your company, and I know the class codes involved in all of that. And I feel like, we're talking about at least $20,000 worth of savings for a 20-minute meeting. So are you telling me that you make more than $60,000 an hour and that's why you're not willing to meet with me for 20 minutes? Because if I can talk to you for 20 minutes about how to save 20,000, well, 20 minutes is 3 times into an hour. So that would mean you would have to be making $60,000 or more dollars an hour.
So it is tough to do that without sounding like a dick, because like it comes, like in your head, you're like, all right, I can say this, I can articulate this in a manner that they're going to understand the numbers, and it'll just solely be based on that. But then I'll start talking to them, and then like you said, the edge will come out, and you'll start just getting fiery, and then there's a thin line.
Well, and at that point, I don't care.
Right, I know, but it's just funny.
Yeah, when I'm at that point and they're saying, no, I'm not willing to talk to you for 20 minutes so I can save $20,000. Like, really?
Exactly. So that's where it kicks in right then. And it's like,
as soon as that happens, I'm at the point of no return.
Right.
So it's like Jim Carrey in Liar, Liar, when he has to tell the truth and he goes into the boardroom. You're fat. You're stupid. You're bald.
Right. Great scene.
Whatever. I you know what? It's so funny because I think about that scene every time I'm in a meeting, almost every single time, because my ADD will take over and I'm getting bored. And especially if it's not like, obviously if I'm presenting, I'm not thinking about this, but if I'm sitting there with somebody else and they're talking or whatever, I'm going to glaze over and I'm thinking to myself.
Next time we're in a meeting, I can almost definitely assume that you're sitting there thinking about Liar, Liar while I'm talking.
100%. And I'm thinking about what would come out of my mouth if I was hearing in this situation. I think about that stuff all the time, man. You gotta do that to be, entertained. What are some other examples of things that you've done to be able, and I mean, I don't necessarily know that you have to limit it to insurance. You had some pretty cool stuff you were doing even back when you were doing office supplies, where you would break things down to a number that you could then show somebody and they would buy as a result of that.
Right. And that was obviously something more, that was a commodity. That was something that was product based versus.
I find great value in my copy.
Well, so it was a little bit of both. I mean, obviously they were buying a product and price was important, but also if they were able to order it online and have it delivered for free versus going to the store or having to call somebody or send, whatever, it was saving them time, allowing them to focus on more revenue producing tasks for their business. So sometimes just having that conversation with people alone was enough to move the needle, to get them to go ahead and buy. I mean, because when you're talking office supplies, the difference between, what we had and then going to Office Depot or Sam's or whatever, there's not a huge difference a lot of times. I mean, sometimes you'd find a sale and whatever, but we did have to sell on value. So I think, and that was my point in the beginning, is just kind of being able to relate, being a chameleon and being able to relate to the people that you're talking with. I didn't walk into a manufacturing company that was blue collar with, a suit and tie on. Like, I would go in with a polo and try to, have a more laid back discussion, because that's just, in my experience, how they were able to receive information better. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a specific scenario where I was breaking something down in a defined manner with someone, in their language. And I don't know if I have any true examples like right off the cuff right now, but again, I think you're going to get further if you're not in there talking with all your jargon and you have more experience than I do, obviously, in the insurance world. I've only, been in the game for whatever, coming up on 3 years. So I find myself talking with people in more layman's terms just because that's where my understanding of certain things are at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And we're all going to gravitate to where we're the most comfortable, because the last thing you want to do is start slinging out complex math calculations and have to speak to them.
Right.
Well, I think another good one, though, that I use when I go in and lead is, and you've heard me use this before, and I've talked about it on here before, but you can also get them to tell you how they measure things, right? So I ask people all the time, how do you measure quality? They can tell you. If it's a contractor, it might be the number of callbacks. If it's a manufacturer, they're doing random sampling per batch and how many, discarded items they have that way. So they have a measurement for that. We ask them, how do you measure productivity? Everybody can tell you how they measure productivity, sales per man hour, number of units produced per hour, whatever. Then we go in and we get into, how do you measure safety? And it's crickets, right?
Right.
Most people
not being hurt. Like,
yeah. Well, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll go to the number of days accident free as a measurement. And I really don't like that, because that incents people, supervisors to maybe brush some things under the mat that shouldn't have been brushed under the mat. True. Especially if there's an incentive tied to it. So we like to go in and give pretty defined metrics based off of how that each organization thinks. And usually it's frequency and severity rates that we'll use, that we calculate the way that they're calculated in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that's an easy way to go in and do that. But then you also have different companies out there who have products that you can use as software to key that in, and they'll give you all kinds of different ideas too. But again, it goes back to when we do the mod analysis as well, right? We're relating to somebody in defined terms. When we present that, we can show them how many mod points are attributed to a body part, and an injury cause, an injury type, or my favorite, by employee. And if you really want to get a business owner or decision maker fired up, tie the amount of mod points and then subsequent 1 year and 3 year premium increases to each employee who had an injury. Now, I'm not saying that they need to run out and fire these people or that the claims are invalid or whatever else. What I'm telling you is, from a psychology standpoint, if you can tie it to a person, they're going to have an emotional response when you do that. Much more so than saying, you had 3 abdominal injuries in the last 12 months. Can you please expand on that for me? No, they're not going to get excited about that. But if you say, what's up with John Smith? This guy's had 3 claims, 2 of them with indemnity over the course of the last 2 years. My question is, why was he here for the 3rd one?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good point. Mod Master, you don't get very much more defined than that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not limited to Modmaster. It's any of even their competitors have very good graphics, and that concept. It's interesting because my mind has really been opened up over the course of the last month in terms of looking at options outside of what Zywave brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we're at a point right now where I'm negotiating my contract with them for the renewal in next July. I wanted to get it out of the way, and that didn't go so well the first time around. So I've tabled, porched that discussion for the time being, and I'm looking at other options out there. And there are options like Magic and some others that, I'll be honest with you, man, they've got some pretty slick products, and they do a good job about how to relay that information. The one thing I think that we need to do, and it's actually something that we are in the process, we're going down the road in Killing Commercial where we're putting these little subcommittees together for specific things. And one of the subcommittees we have is on graphics. So we're working on creating a proposal template that is a good, solid proposal template for any kind of middle market company. And a group of us are saying, we need to include this. We need to include this. We're going to pretty it up, have a professional graphics person, give it a once over. And then we're going to roll that out. And everybody that's in Killing Commercial will have access to that template and use it. I want to do the same thing with infographics around the mod report, because what I don't like are a lot of bar graphs and line graphs.
Yeah.
I think that people
becomes repetitive, and
I think people relate more to an infographic with like pictures or multiple colors and all of that stuff. I'm gonna tell you what, man, Magic has a really solid product as far as that goes. I was impressed when I looked on their website and I saw the infographics that they have on there. I was really attracted to that. So we'll see how everything shakes out in the bushes. But, again, another way that you can get in front of your client. Here's another one that you need to define for them. You need to define what you're going to do from a service standpoint. And we talked about this on, the podcast, actually, episode 12, about setting expectations.
Right.
But, you have to do that. Setting expectations for clients is paramount, because if you don't set them, they're going to formulate their own, and they may not be even remotely close to realistic.
No.
Right? I heard it. I was part of a deal. I mean, I lost my mind on one of my videos and blog posts this week that basically said, quit complaining when you lose an account.
Right.
And the crux of it is, I'm sick and tired of listening to insurance salespeople bitch and moan when they lose an account because the big bad brokerage came in with their fancy risk management techniques and all of this other stuff, and they took the account, they stole it from them. And this client, they've been with me for 10 years. And I mean, listen, the guy that lost the account that posted, that got my mind thinking about this, great dude, but he's not been in the middle market long enough to understand how the game is played in the middle market, right? So what happens is, if you go to a group of insurance salespeople that all they do is sell insurance and they deliver zero value, but we're going to sell insurance real good, you got to make sure that you know what you're going to get. And this guy was like, I lost a long-term client. The big brokerage came in. They had all this risk management stuff, promised all these things, and they actually paid $5,000 more to the big brokerage to leave me. And what happened is everybody and their brothers piling on in this post, right? Every one of them, they're coming in there and they're giving you, oh, it sucks. Clients are so fickle. They'll leave you on a nickel. Well, no, not really. They paid $5,000 more to go to this other agency.
Was that Dr. Seuss that made that comment?
Yeah. And it's just like every one of them. And it's like, you bust your can for them, but you get the certificates out on time for them. And listen, people, I'm not going to give you the whole freaking thread. What I'm going to tell you is customer service, it doesn't cut it. Customer service is the expectation. If you can't talk to people in defined terms that they can understand, that relate to the sales and profitability of their business, and give them what results in an awesome client experience, you're done. You will lose every single time. Here's a fact. the same big brokerages that are taking business from insurance salespeople are the same big brokerages we're taking business from every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Cut it out. Quit your whining. God, it drives me nuts, man. I get so irritated when I hear that. People licking their wounds, playing the role of the victim. If somebody comes in and does something dirty, okay.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But if somebody came in and they offered
and just outvalue propped you, then, I mean, you need to learn from that, move on and fix it for next time so it doesn't happen. My
exact words were, the revenue that you lost by that account leaving you is the tuition that you were paying to learn to never have to deal with this again. It's tuition at this point.
There you go.
Quit complaining, people. Nobody wants to hear it anyhow.
It's true.
It's the weekend. Cheers. It's the freaking weekend. Time to get this party started. We're out. See ya.
You've been listening to Power Producers Shop Talk. You can follow us at the Power Producers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our commercial insurance training course at killingcommercial.com or visit Amazon to pick up a copy of our international best-selling book, The Extra 2 Minutes.